Hello, and thanks for joining. My name is Jeff Demuth, and I'm a solution architect at AWS. Today we're going to walk through deploying ArcGIS Enterprise using Cloud Builder. So to get started, we're going to launch Cloud Builder. Go ahead and enter in either an access key and secret key, or if you've got AWS profile on the instance, you can choose that. We'll click sign in. We're going to click add deployment. Choose ArcGIS Enterprise. Do a single machine. Pick our region. I can choose Ubuntu or Windows. Give it a name. Select our VPC and a key pair. Click Next. Select our SSL cert, put in our password. Select our Elastic IP. Just a quick note, here's what I use to you can just run this AWS EC2 allocate address. That's what will allocate an Elastic IP address. And then this is just a Windows PowerShell command to generate an SSL cert that's based on the Elastic IP address that was allocated. So this is US East, which has kind of a different ending DNS name than the rest of our regions. Normally the regions will have the region name in the URL as well, just something to watch out for. But if it's US East 1, it's going to look like, the DNS name is going to look like this. You can generate an SSL cert. Alternatively, you can create an application load balancer and use the DNS name for the application load balancer. You just have to be careful with ArcGIS. There's a bit of a chicken or the egg issue with DNS names. Yeah, so what I mean with like chicken or the egg problem is that when you run this tool and it starts spinning up the environment, it's going to try and validate that that DNS record exists. So if you've got an application load balancer, while you're deploying it, you kind of have to be quick and see once that EC2 instance spins up, you have to create the target group for the ALB and attach it to it, because otherwise it'll fail the validation test because it's going to try and connect to itself on the URL that you've got in here. The Elastic IP here is a little bit easier. So what I do is I'll just deploy with the Elastic IP, let it validate everything, and then after the fact you can go in and stick an application load balancer in front of it. Just makes the process a little simpler. And type in a username. Select an instance size. So one thing to note is a lot of these instances are old instances. So the newest one they have in here is an M5, and that instance is several years old. We've got M7s now. So one of the first things you're going to want to do after you deploy this is go in and upgrade these instances to the M7. It's very easy to do. You essentially go to EC2, click on the instance, say right click, change instance size, select M7. It's going to reboot the instance. And it'll come up on the latest Intel or AMD processors. Also for config store, I like to do file system. If you choose cloud store, it's going to save a lot of data to S3, which is fine. But if you ever wanted to restore this environment, maybe in another region using AWS backup, it complicates the restore process because now you've got all this data in US East and S3. You've got to find a way to replicate that over to US West and then make it appear to ArcGIS, as if nothing has changed. File system, you can just essentially clone that instance, restore it in US West, and in a disaster recovery scenario, you've got everything local. It's just going to spin up and start running. We're going to use a M5 2XL. This is 8 cores, 32 gigs of memory. The Cloud Builder tool only gives you the option to deploy portal, server, data store, all co-located on one instance. This is fine for small environments with maybe 5 or 6 users and test and dev environments. But for larger environments, you're going to want server, portal, data store all installed on separate machines. Otherwise, they're going to be fighting for resources. Also, this 2XL instance is 8 cores with 32 gigs of memory. With Esri's license, a 4-core license is actually, you can actually use that for up to 8 cores in the cloud. So you're paying for those licenses. Make sure you maximize your use, deploy an 8-core instance. It's also another very important point for deploying these on separate instances, because right now you're paying for ArcGIS server, for these 8 cores, but a lot of those cores are being used by portal and data store. When you break those out into 3 separate machines, that 8-core license you're paying for, 4-core license that you get 8 cores on, is only being used and consumed by server. And then you can independently increase portal and data store, and you don't have to worry about the license restrictions because both portal and data store aren't licensed by CPU. And we'll click create. So go ahead and let this run. It typically takes about 35-40 minutes to run. All right, and our deployment is complete. I mean, by far, this is the easiest way to deploy ArcGIS. I just wish they had an option to break it out into 3 different servers. If you choose any of the other servers, service roles, it will actually stand those up on a separate instance and then federate it, like an image server, for example. But now I'm going here and click on this. Sign in. And there we go. But now that we've deployed with Cloud Builder, we could also use this to upgrade the deployment. Basically, to do that, you would download the new ArcGIS Cloud Builder for 11.1 or 11.2. It would automatically detect this environment when you put in your access key and secret key. It would see that it was there. And it would give you a button to upgrade it to the next version. And it's basically the same process. You upload your license file. Also, if you were interested in seeing on the back end, this is creating a CloudFormation template. The automated way to deploy the 3-tier architecture is to use a CloudFormation template. But this on the back end is also going to create a CloudFormation template, so you could go in and look at what was deployed inside of that. It's a lot of chef scripts and systems manager documents, so it's not really all that helpful, but it's nice to see the CloudFormation template there. All right, that's all I had for this video. If you like this, go ahead and like the video and subscribe, and thank you for joining.